I love it. I love it. Wow, I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's poppin', my homies? What's good? Hope you're doing well, doing blessed, having a good day, having a good week. UFC Mexico, Viva la Mexico, let's go. Now, the main event for UFC Mexico is going to be Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval, which is a good main event. But before we get into breaking down matchups, making picks, let's look at my bets from last weekend. And I finally get a win. Not a big win, but a win's a win, and I needed a win. Elia Tapora, Ian Gary, and also Danny Barlow, they all got it done. Dusted. I've already got a bet locked in for UFC Mexico, a unit bet, 200 placed on a nice parlay. I think the parlay is going to smack. Now, before we get into making picks, let's go to Money City. Let's take a look at the champions for UFC 298. Now, if you see your name on the screen, you already know. That's money. The shout out to Gold Badger, shout out to Joe, shout out to G Johnson, big shout out to Sean. And guys, 2024 for Sean, it's not been too good, but there's an old saying, form is temporary, class is permanent. And then we've got MMA Mishap, shout out to Mishap. Shojo's been doing some nice tickets. 2024, watch out for Shojo. Alberto Arroyo, shout out to that guy. I think he's Spanish. You know, Alberto, that sounds Spanish. But I'm only assuming. And guys, assuming in 2024, if you assume someone's gender, oh my goodness. Then Usher with Bobby Knuckles and Marab. 23, The X Factor. James, shout out to James. James is an OG. Shout out to Randy Savage. And also another James. Moving into the first matchup on the card, we've got Muhammad Naimov taking on Erick Silva. So guys, Muhammad Naimov is currently undefeated in the UFC. He's had 2 UFC fights, and both times he was an underdog. He was clearly losing the matchup to Jamie Mullarkey. You know, he was losing that fight, but eventually Jamie Mullarkey's striking defense, it shows to be bad, and Naimov gets a KO stoppage. But guys, against Nathaniel Wood, you've got to give Naimov a lot of credit. Like a lot of credit, because Nathaniel Wood's a good grappler, a good wrestler, a good boxer. He's seasoned. So to see Naimov win a fight against Nathaniel Wood, where he, you know, used a lot of grappling, used a lot of wrestling, he beat Nathaniel Wood. That's a good win. Now on the flip side, we've got Erick Silva, a guy who had a really disappointing UFC debut. I was rewatching Erick Silva's UFC debut, and you're seeing his cardio's not good. You're seeing his defensive wrestling's not good. You're seeing his striking it's not great. So yeah guys, looking at the performances of Naimov compared to the UFC performance of Erick Silva, I think there's a big difference. You know, the wrestling of Naimov is good. The wrestling of Erick Silva, not that good. Even the cardio of Naimov compared to Erick Silva, there's a big difference. So yeah, all the things on tape are telling me that the pick, the prediction, it has to be Naimov. And guys, let's just be honest. Nathaniel Wood and Jamie Mullarkey are miles better than Erick Silva. Moving into a matchup between Victor Altamirano taking on Felipe dos Santos. This is a good matchup. Really decent matchmaking. Now guys, looking at Victor Altamirano, he got ragdolled by Tim Elliott. Literally got ragdolled in that fight. Showed us that his takedown defense is nothing short of terrible. However, Felipe dos Santos isn't going to test Altamirano in the same way. Dos Santos isn't looking for takedowns. You know, he's looking to strike. He wants to fight on the feet. And guys, when you look at Altamirano, he's kind of reckless in the kickboxing. You know, becomes flat-footed. His cardio's not the best. He'll leave his chin in the air. He is aggressive and he will throw his strikes, but I think he's reckless when he's aggressive. And you don't really want to be reckless. You do want to be aggressive, but not reckless. Now guys, looking at Felipe dos Santos, this dude gave Manel Kopp a really good matchup, a really good fight. And guys, in my opinion, dos Santos can take positives from losing to Manel Kopp. Obviously, you don't want to take too many positives. You know, you don't want to be happy that you lost. Now guys, in my opinion, if the matchup stays on the feet, which it probably does, or Altamirano gets like 1 takedown at most. So guys, in my opinion, if we get mainly a kickboxing matchup, we're going to see Victor Altamirano show his toughness, you know, but the toughness isn't going to win the fight. What's going to win the fight is damage. And when you leave yourself open, when you're reckless, you're going to receive some damage. So Altamirano did get ragdolled by Tim Elliott. Is he going to get ragdolled by Dos Santos? Probably not. We're going to see a kickboxing matchup. But the kickboxing matchup we're going to see, Dos Santos is going to be sharper. He's going to be quicker. He's going to have technically better weapons. And guys, Dos Santos isn't defensively the best. You're seeing Manel Kopp find his openings, find his counters. But Altamirano isn't Manel Kopp. So the prediction is going to be Felipe dos Santos to essentially dust Victor Altamirano. Moving into a matchup between Luis Rodrigues taking on Dennis Bondar. And guys, Dennis Bondar needs a win. He needs a win badly. Hasn't won a fight in the UFC yet. Needs a win. And if you look at his performance against Carlos Hernandez, it's a performance where you're kind of asking yourself, why is Dennis Bondar in the UFC? Like, what is this guy doing? He got massively outboxed by Carlos Hernandez. Carlos Hernandez was teaching him a lesson all day on the feet. You know, boxing him up. Just boxed him up left, right and centre. Dusted. Now guys, Luis Rodrigues is actually an underdog against Dennis Bondar, which is kind of surprising because Dennis Bondar, like I said, he's not that good. But the fact that Luis Rodrigues is an underdog against Dennis Bondar kind of tells me the matchup is a low-level matchup. It's a scrubs matchup. Dennis Bondar is not good. Offensively and defensively, he's not that good. You see that against Hernandez. You know, he's getting boxed up. Now, if you're somebody that's going to bet on a matchup between Dennis Bondar and Luis Rodrigues, more than likely, you don't mind playing roulette. You don't mind playing roulette. I'm not going to play roulette. I'm not going to bet Dennis Bondar or Luis Rodrigues. But guys, if I had to do that, if I had to make a bet, at gun to the head, Mexican AK-47 to the head, I'd pick Luis Rodrigues because Dennis Bondar, he's terrible. So the pick is going to be Luis Rodrigues, but for me personally, I wouldn't bet this. No bets. Moving into a matchup between Claudio Puelles taking on Faraz Ziam. Essentially what you've got here is grappling versus striking. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus kickboxing. Now guys, in my opinion, Claudio's not really a fighter. He's a Jiu-Jitsu player. He's a grappler. Because guys, let's define what is a fighter. A fighter, in my opinion, is somebody that's faced with adversity, overcomes the adversity, and remains in the fight. That's a fighter. Because a fight's not a fight unless there's something to overcome. Once you have to overcome some adversity, now you're in a fight. Now I'm looking at Claudio against Dan Hooker. And the way Dan Hooker's just throwing some teep kicks, you know, some standard combinations. And Claudio's like, you know, he's acting like he's going to get shot. He's acting like Dan Hooker's got an AK-47. He's acting like he's got to desperately avoid the kickboxing. You know, this is not a fighter. This is not a fight, come on. So guys, Claudio wasn't really happy to be in the fight with Dan Hooker. And the main reason as to why that was, the fight wasn't going his way. And when the fight's not going your way, that's the main challenge right there. Now on the flip side, you've got Faraz Ziam, a striker that's super fast, the low kicks. His boxing's also really sharp. So on the feet, scoring against Claudio should be pretty easy. You know, Claudio doesn't want to be on the feet. He doesn't want to strike. So if Faraz Ziam is made to kickbox with Claudio, then he should be able to score. Now, the main thing you don't want to let happen against Claudio is, you know, you throw a lazy kick, a telegraphed kick, and now Claudio can get a takedown. You don't want to go to the mat. Essentially, to beat Claudio, just avoid the mat. So all you've really got to do against Claudio is just avoid the mat. If you avoid the mat, you should start to break Claudio. And that's what I think Faraz Ziam's going to do. So give me Faraz Ziam to essentially outclass and break Claudio Puelles. Moving into a matchup between Edgar Chairrez taking on Daniel Lacerda. Now, guys, I'm actually going to make a prediction that most people would disagree with. And guys, there's no logic to this prediction. The logic to this pick, it doesn't add up. Now, if you wanted the logical prediction would be, look, Edgar Chairrez has already beaten Daniel Lacerda. So we're going to pick Chairrez. That's the logical prediction. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make a logical prediction. I'm actually going to give Daniel Lacerda one last chance. Because this really is his last chance. Now, guys, Daniel Lacerda's cardio is kind of dusty. You know, he's got 1 round cardio. He did fight more composed against Chairrez, even though he lost. He was still fighting more composed, still lost the fight. But yeah, I'm actually going to take a big underdog prediction here on Daniel Lacerda, because anytime I predict someone to lose and to get cut recently, it doesn't work. So if I predict Lacerda to lose the fight and get cut, you know he's going to find like a weird will kick stoppage or something crazy. So actually, I'm going to pick Daniel Lacerda to go in there and cash at plus 300. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Let's go, Daniel Lacerda. Let's go. Last chance. Last chance. Moving into a matchup between Jesus Aguilar taking on Mateus Mendonca. Now guys, Jesus Aguilar may be 5'4". He may have the shortest reach in the UFC. He may be physically outmatched in pretty much all of his matchups. But you know what they say, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight, it's about the size of the fight in the dog. And Jesus Aguilar is a Mexican fierce little dog. His ability to close the distance is there to see. You see that against Shannon Ross. Closes the distance really quick. Dusted. So guys, Jesus Aguilar has to use his speed as a weapon because he's physically outmatched. Now Mendonca on the flip side kinda needs to win the matchup because he's 0-2 in the UFC. He needs a win. So yeah, 2 fights, 2 losses. His debut loss against Javid Basharat, that's not a bad loss because Javid Basharat, that dude's a prospect. Whereas his most recent loss to Nate is a really bad loss, and it's also the performance. You know, lost the fight, but the performance, the fight IQ. Why is he continuously attacking the legs of Nate? It's just a bad performance. Really questionable. Now in this matchup, I think Mendonca would win if he doesn't get tired. But I think he's probably going to use a lot of energy in the first round and potentially make some bad decisions just like he did against Nate. And that's where you're going to see Jesus Aguilar be able to implement his cardio, implement his heart and determination into the fight. And I think what we could see is Jesus Aguilar, despite the height disadvantage, despite the reach disadvantage, if he shows good cardio, determination, toughness, and Mendonca's slowing down, Mendonca's making bad decisions, I think we could potentially see Jesus Aguilar as an underdog get it done. So give me the little tank. And that's the nickname I've given Jesus Aguilar, the little tank. Give me the underdog, Jesus Aguilar. Moving into a matchup between Quinonez taking on Barcelos. We've got boxing versus Muay Thai. Now, most of the time, I would side with Thai boxing against standard boxing because with Thai boxing, you've got 8 limbs, more variety. And when you've got more variety, typically you can find more success. Will that be the case with this matchup? Will Barcelos be able to outstrike the boxer Quinonez? Now, if we look at Quinonez, we can see he's using the jab. He loves to use the jab. It's not the best jab you've ever seen, but you still love to see fighters making good use of arguably one of the most important weapons you could have in a fight, the jab. Now guys, Quinonez should really be 2-0 in the UFC. He was outboxing Kang, you know, even rocked Kang, and for some reason decided to rush in, get clipped, and got stopped on the mat. Now the fact that Quinonez rushed in, got clipped, it kind of shows you his inexperience. Because guys, when the opponent's rocked, the hard work's done. You know what I'm saying? The hard work's done. Once you have the opponent hurt, now you've just got to touch their chin. And that requires precision, accuracy. It doesn't require aggression. And you see with Quinonez, he got overly aggressive, got clipped, got dusted. But guys, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. In that situation for Quinonez, it was about learning. Now Barcelos, a Muay Thai boxer, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a solid mixed martial artist. Now the problem I've got with picking Raoni or to bet on Raoni, he's kinda old. And obviously guys, fighting is a young man's game, as we saw last weekend in the main event, right? I don't question the skill. I don't question the Thai boxing of Raoni. I question his cardio. I question his output after 10 minutes. He can be quite predictable with the constant hooks. His reactions aren't as good as they used to be. He's got more skill than Quinonez in my opinion, but I'm not sure Raoni is really a good bet this day and age, considering he's old. So in my opinion, give me the underdog, Quinonez, to use the jab and to essentially outbox the Muay Thai player that is Barcelos. If you waited to smoke with me, amen. If you're smoking this whole time, double amen. If you're not a smoker, but you enjoy the smoke breaks, that's always been a triple amen gang. Let's go. Now guys, let me tell you something about Mexicans. And this ain't a joke. Guys, for some reason, God made the Mexicans with insane durability. The Mexicans are just mad tough. Like super tough. You put a Mexican in a fight, he'll fight all day. Guys, the Mexicans, they're gonna make us money on this card. It's not gonna be like UFC Canada. And I'm not trying to downplay Canadian mixed martial arts, but I ain't gonna forget what the Canadians done. I ain't gonna forget that. But yeah, the Mexicans, man, toughness for days, durability for days. And we're gonna make some money based on that. Let's go. Moving into a matchup between Torres taking on Duncan. Guys, somebody's gotta go night-night. Somebody's got to go to sleep. Is it going to be Torres? Is it going to be Duncan? Someone's got to visit Ben Askren, the king of Shadow City. Who's it going to be? Now, Torres absolutely dusted Nicholas Motta. You know, that elbow stoppage. What even possessed Torres to even think to land that elbow? That elbow was nasty, violent, savage. And on the flip side, we've got Duncan, had a really dominant performance against Yair Hughes. Like super dominant. From the opening seconds to the final seconds, Yair Hughes didn't really do much. So yeah, Duncan coming off a good win. He's in good form. Torres, big hitter. Someone's going to get dusted. Someone's going night-night. Guys, for me personally, it's a matchup where I don't really want to make a bet because Manuel Torres is going to be over aggressive. He's going to try to find a stoppage. Chris Duncan's really tough. He's not going to back down. It's a risky matchup to bet. I do think Chris Duncan's in good form. I think he's tough. I think he can make defensive mistakes though, and he could be a bit sharper defensively. But Manuel Torres, hasn't really been tested. So it's a matchup where, like I said, it's risky. But gun to the head, Mexican AK-47, again, to the head. Give me Manuel Torres to dust Chris Duncan. Give me Manuel Torres to sleep Chris Duncan. Someone's going night-night. It's just about picking who's that going to be. I think it's going to be Chris. I think Chris is going to visit Ben Askren. That's my pick. Moving into a matchup between Yazmin Jauregui taking on Sam Hughes. Now, guys, Yazmin Jauregui is phenomenal. She's a really good prospect. Lightning fast. Her boxing is really good. It's powerful. And she loves to be the aggressor. Walk forward, bring the fight. She's a phenomenal young prospect. Now, some people may disagree. Some people may say, look, she got dropped by Denise Gomes. Dusted by Denise Gomes. She got dropped by Estela Nunes. She's had some adversity. Right? She's only 24 years old, so there's still a lot of time for her to fulfill her potential. And guys, I'd say when you get a matchup against someone like Sam Hughes, it's a matchup where you can kind of build some confidence, you can build some momentum. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to Sam Hughes, but I don't think she's on the same level as Yazmin. The only way I can really see Sam Hughes being able to beat Yazmin Jauregui is simply getting her to the mat and keeping her on the mat. And for Sam Hughes to do that, more than likely, Yazmin would have to get tired. And I don't really see that happening. I think Yazmin's going to stop Sam Hughes. I think she's going to KO TKO Sam Hughes. And guys, Sam Hughes is tough. You look at Sam, she's tough. She'll keep walking forward. Her cardio's good. If you beat her up early in the fight's not done. She's going to keep pressing forward. She's tough. But toughness isn't going to get you the win against someone who's a superior boxer, someone who's sharper, quicker, faster, more powerful, more significant. Yazmin Jauregui is much better in terms of boxing and damage. And yeah, there's a big difference in levels. And for Sam to win, she's got to wait for Yazmin to get tired. And that's not going to happen. I think Yazmin's going to dust Sam Hughes. Moving into a matchup between Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Ricky Turcios, the Mexican quagmire, aka Werner Jandiroba's little bro. Let me tell you something about Raul Rosas Jr. This guy's an absolute beast when it comes to grappling. Physically super strong. His takedowns aren't super technical, but because he's so strong, he gets them. That's essentially what Raul Rosas Jr. is looking to do. Just physically overpower the opponent. Show the opponent, look, I'm here to assert my dominance. I'm going to get you to the mat. I'm going to maul you. And that's what he's done so far. He's looked good. He did lose to C-Rod. But C-Rod, he's a good prospect. Now, guys, is Ricky Turcios going to be able to essentially humble Raul Rosas Jr. the way C-Rod humbled him? In my opinion, probably not. If you look at Ricky Turcios, his takedown defense is really, really bad. Like, super bad. And for anyone that listens to my channel on a weekly basis, anytime we see someone with really bad takedown defense, we compare them to a newborn baby giraffe. Because the newborn baby giraffe, it tries to stay on its feet, it falls over, it gets back up, it falls over, it can't stay on its feet. And that's Ricky Turcios. Ricky Turcios cannot stay on his feet. His takedown defense, that of a newborn baby giraffe. And guys, one of the best ways to stay on the feet, right, to defend the takedown, is called a down block. You want to use a down block. But guys, looking at Ricky Turcios, his hands are high. He's got the high guard, right? And if you need a down block, you need to get your hand to the mat. If your hands are high, you can't get the down block quick enough. So yeah, his takedown defense, really bad. He's not going to stay on the feet. Raul Rosas Jr. is going to get him to the mat more than once, and he's going to maul him. So give me Raul Rosas Jr. to essentially dominate Ricky Turcios. Moving into a matchup between Daniel Zellhuber taking on Francisco Prado. Absolutely love this matchup. It's a decent matchup. It's a matchup where if Daniel Zellhuber doesn't allow Prado to close the distance and get into the pocket, if Daniel Zellhuber doesn't allow that, he should easily win. He should easily beat Prado. It's the same thing as Ribeiro versus Zhang. It's a battle of range. Who can fight at the preferred range? Zellhuber is so technical. His low kick, the teep kick, the head kick, the jab, the doubling up of the jab, the counter punching. He's really technical. But his defense kind of needs some work. Guys, when it comes to defense, you've kind of got two options. Either you slip and counter, or you get out of the way of the strikes. Those are the two options you've got when it comes to defense. If you're not slipping and countering and you're not getting out of the way, then cover up, because you're going to get hit and you don't want to get hit. So covering up would be an option, but it's not the most superior option. You want to slip and counter. That's where champions are made. Now guys, Zellhuber, in my opinion, kind of looks like he doesn't know what he wants to do. Like counter the opponent or move out the way of the strikes. He kind of looks like he's caught in two minds defensively. But what I did notice in the second round against Giagos, it's like he just countered. Everything that Giagos was throwing, it was always getting countered. And when he decided that, when he started to do that, he started to dust Christos Giagos. The counter boxing looks so beautiful. Now guys, on the flip side, Francisco Prado isn't as technical. He doesn't have the same physical advantages as Daniel Zellhuber. And obviously, you can only fight to your capabilities. So for Prado, it's about getting into the pocket. It's a hook heavy style. Get into the pocket, let the hooks fly. And guys, if Prado can establish that in the pocket boxing range, then he can be effective. But getting past the kicks, getting past the jab of Zellhuber, it's going to be a massive task. And guys, in my opinion, it's going to be too much of a task for Francisco Prado. So give me Daniel Zellhuber to essentially teach Prado a lesson in the striking. Moving into the co-main event, we've got Yair Rodrigues taking on Brian TC Ortega. Now guys, anyone that watches UFC on a weekly basis, you know Brian Ortega is an elite jiu-jitsu player. His jiu-jitsu is super good. But we also know that Brian Ortega has the striking defense of Darren Elkins. You know, striking defense just abysmal. You can even see against Yair Rodrigues, Yair was finding the mark. He was teeing off. So guys, more than likely for Brian Ortega to win the matchup, he does have to get Yair Rodrigues to the mat, which he did do. But then Yair Rodrigues sent him to Snap City. He went to Snap City. So guys, really, if the matchup goes to the mat, Yair Rodrigues might throw up arm bars. He might throw up triangles again. If the fight stays on the feet, Yair Rodrigues is going to light up Brian Ortega with the kicks, the speed. I think the prediction to make is probably Yair Rodrigues, but something tells me to go with Brian Ortega. I don't know why. Guys, the intuition. Don't always go with the logic. Like when I picked Daniel Lacerda, that's not logic, that's intuition. And the intuition may fail, it may be wrong. But you've kind of got to take the intuition here and there. There's a chance I'm wrong with the co-main event, but I'm going to take Brian Ortega as an underdog. Guys, this matchup is the same as Amanda Lemos and Mackenzie Dern. Mackenzie Dern, terrible striking defense. Brian Ortega, terrible striking defense. Mackenzie Dern, elite jiu-jitsu. Brian Ortega, elite jiu-jitsu. Amanda Lemos, super fast with the kicks. Yair Rodrigues, super fast with the kicks. It's the same matchup. I'm going to take the underdog again. But this time, I might cash it. Might get it right. Now guys, moving into the main event, we've got Brandon Raw Dog Royval taking on Brandon Moreno. Now guys, what do we know about Brandon Royval? We know his cardio is very good. We know his takedown defense is abysmal, terrible. We know Brandon Royval's chin is kind of questionable, but what's more questionable, in my opinion, is the way he leaves his chin on the center line. He's always fighting at a high pace, you know, trying to overwhelm the opponent. But what happens when he does that is he leaves openings. He leaves openings for the opponent. And he's probably going to do the same thing against Brandon Moreno. You know, he's going to be Brandon Raw Dog Royval. He's going to have good cardio, a good pace, but he's going to leave openings. And like I said, his takedown defense is really bad. But he does scramble, and his jiu-jitsu is pretty good. So the transitions on the mat should be competitive, and it should be fun to watch. But guys, as far as I'm concerned, Brandon Moreno did out-grapple Brandon Royval. You see that. When the fight was on the mat, you could see that Brandon Royval was always fighting for top position and always getting top position. So Brandon Royval was competing, but he was getting outmatched. And that's what we're going to see here again, in my opinion. I think Brandon Moreno is just too quick, too sharp, too intelligent for Brandon Royval. Now, the only way I can see Brandon Royval really winning is his cardio. Guys, if Brandon Moreno gets tired, then potentially we could see the underdog, Brandon Royval, potentially make things sweaty. But how do we pick against Brandon Moreno? How do we do that? I'm not going to do that. The pick is Brandon Moreno. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. Hey, don't pick against Brandon Moreno. Let's go. As always, guys, drop down your main event, your co-main event, your parlays, your Money City bets. All that good stuff. Drop in the comment section below. And as always, keep your eyes to the sky, never glued to your shoes. Peace.